We're talking about the young guns in the NBA, the players who are out there putting the teams on their backs, night in and night out. Despite all the challenges, all the setbacks, these are the players who are not waiting around. They're here to make their mark, to change the game. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look at some of the brightest young stars who are ready to take this league by storm. Number 1 is Jaylen Suggs. Jaylen Suggs is not playing around this season. I'm talking about averages of 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, almost 2 steals, and a block per game. Suggs has come out with a vengeance. The Orlando Magic have finally unleashed him, and now what we're seeing is a player who could be the absolute difference maker that no one saw coming. You can go ahead and put this league on notice. This kid Suggs is about to put some respect on the Orlando Magic's name. Now listen, I know what you're thinking. This is the same old Suggs who, for his first couple of seasons, was stuck in a rebuild with a Magic team that didn't know whether they were coming or going. They were an absolute mess. This team was floundering for an identity, and young players like Suggs paid the price. Some people, not me of course, were already writing him off. But now, we've got a situation in Orlando, folks. Suggs, Paolo Banchero, and Franz Wagner have finally been given the green light to take over this team, and they're making the most of it. But here's the kicker, and listen closely. Jaylen Suggs might just be the most important piece in this lineup. That's right, I said it. Not Paolo, not Wagner, Suggs. Sure, Banchero just went off for almost 50 points, but without Suggs bringing that defensive intensity and emerging as a legitimate threat on the offensive end, the Magic wouldn't even be sniffing the playoffs. He is the one bringing that gritty two-way presence, and if he can sustain this performance, you're looking at a potential all-defensive team candidate. I'm talking about a guy who could elevate this Magic squad from an afterthought in the East to a legit contender for a playoff spot. And let me make something abundantly clear. We're not just witnessing a hot start here. What we're seeing is a player who's finally getting the stability and confidence he deserves. This isn't a fluke, people. The Magic finally have an identity, they have a core, and Suggs is proving to everyone that he belongs right there in the center of it. I'm telling you right now, if he keeps this up, there is no way Orlando misses the playoffs. In fact, I'll go as far to say that this team could be a problem for whoever they face in the postseason. Imagine a gritty, young, successful squad led by Suggs, Banchero, and Wagner, hungry to prove themselves. So I'm giving you a fair warning. Do not sleep on Jaylen Suggs. Do not sleep on this Magic team. Suggs is here to play, and he might just be able to rewrite his story and the story of this franchise. Number 2 is Cade Cunningham. Let me just say this right now, Cade Cunningham is an absolute stud in the making. Yes, I know, the Detroit Pistons are a straight up disaster right now, no offense. Yet amidst all the chaos, all that losing, who's the one guy putting up a fight every single night? Cade Cunningham. This man is averaging career highs across the board, 23 points per game, and making it look easy. I mean, he's the lone shining star in Detroit, folks. I don't care what the standings say. Cade is for real, and he's not waiting around for the rest of the Pistons to catch up. Remember, we're talking about a kid who was considered one of the most polished high school prospects in years. From day one, he was seen as the future of this franchise, the guy who was going to bring Detroit back to relevance, but injuries have hit him hard pretty early on. And let me tell you, that can derail even the best of careers. But Cade, he's putting in the work to overcome it. And what we're seeing right now is a young star who is finally getting a real shot to show us what he's capable of. And I know, the Pistons are terrible right now. They're rebuilding, and let's be honest, they've been stuck in so-called rebuild mode for way too long. But imagine how different this team could look in just a couple of years with Cade at the helm. Imagine a healthy, confident Cade Cunningham, a guy who can do it all, score, facilitate, defend. You're looking at a player who could be the cornerstone that Detroit has been praying for since the days of Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace. I'm talking about a player who could finally bring some real hope back to the Motor City. Listen, I know it's hard to get excited about a team that's been sitting at the bottom of the standings, but Cade isn't just putting up empty stats. He's setting the tone for this franchise. He's bringing in a winning mentality even when there isn't much winning going on. That's rare. Detroit may be a joke right now, but with Cade in that locker room, they've got a guy who could single-handedly change the culture. He's got the skill, he's got the leadership, and most importantly, he's got the fire to turn this team around. So here's my take. Cade Cunningham might just be the most underrated young star in the league right now. You heard me. If he can stay healthy, we're looking at a future All-Star, maybe even MVP candidate down the line. The Pistons might be down and out right now, but don't sleep on Cade, and don't sleep on Detroit. This kid is going to lead a resurgence in Motown, and trust me, when that time comes, people are going to regret ever doubting him.
The next breakout player for this season appears to be Buddy Hield. Going back to 2021, Buddy has continually been in trade talks as a guy who could come into a franchise and be quickly plugged into the lineup to easily spread out the floor. However, once a trade finally happened and Buddy found his way to Philly, it didn't play out the same way that people theorized. Over his 32 games in Philly, he was only taking around 6.5 3-point attempts a game and knocking down 39% of them, which are pretty good numbers, but that really didn't translate to the real on-court success. And ultimately, it was a pretty easy decision for the Sixers to let Buddy go. After that pretty abysmal season, the bids weren't too high, and the Warriors were able to come in and sign him for a $38 million deal over 4 years. However, after the start he's been on this year, that number is starting to seem like one of the better contracts in the entire league. Over the course of the offseason, pretty massive moves were happening for the Warriors as well. They ultimately decided it was time to cut ties with longtime Warriors legend Klay Thompson. And so it appeared that the team was finally ready to go in another direction after almost 15 years of running the same core players. But bringing in Buddy Hield has almost seemed to revitalize this roster and is bringing back flashes of prime Splash Brother days. The Warriors have fully plugged in Buddy Hield into Klay Thompson's old role, so much so that even Rockets head coach Ime Udoka commented on Buddy's success saying, quote, "Klay Thompson all over again. That's how they're using him," end quote. And after averaging 22 points, shooting 52% on 10 attempts from behind the arc at the time of writing this, that comparison definitely seems pretty fitting. And that's where the difference between him now and when he was in Philly comes in. This franchise has a real need for him and know how to use him. Yes, this is most likely the absolute best version of Buddy we're ever gonna get, but his year in Philly didn't really reflect his overall potential, and ultimately the Warriors are kinda lucky that the Sixers did fumble him. Now they've got an elite shooter on a deal for just under $10 million a year, hopefully giving Steph some more time to chase after one last ring with the same franchise that drafted him. Now moving on to the Toronto Raptors and their hopeful breakout this season, Grady Dick. Grady's rookie season was alright, but truthfully nothing eye-popping or outstanding, especially for a lottery pick. But in his defense, the Raptors roster last year was weird and in the midst of a complete rebuild. So for a lot of the year, there was little room to truly give Grady his run. That being said, there were still a few bright spots during that rookie campaign. He did have 4 20-point performances in 4 different games, shooting 50% from behind the arc and the field in all 4 of those games. And after the Siakam and OG trades were done, he did start to get more minutes, but they were pretty shaky. One game he'd shoot 60% from 3, and the next he'd go 0-5. But again, this isn't something that's fully uncommon for a rookie on a changing roster. But this season, things have completely turned around for Grady. Through the first 7 games, Dick was dropping 21 a game on efficient shooting numbers, even etching his name into Raptors history books as he and RJ became the first duo in Raptors history to both have back-to-back 30-point games. This increase in offensive output isn't just chalked up to him getting more of an opportunity. He's added quite a bit to his game. He's almost got a legit layup package now, and he's becoming more aggressive while making the right plays, all translating into him finding more ways to get to the free throw line. Ultimately, Grady probably won't ever be an all-star caliber type of player, but when looking at what the Raptors are building, his addition does make sense. When paired up with players like RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, he's a great player to help space out the floor. He's a great catch and shoot player, but he can also create his own shot. However, it's gotta be said that having Emmanuel Quickley for $32 million a year over 5 years makes a team's options for re-signing Dick a little harder. And kind of off the topic, that is definitely a contract that the team should not have signed and definitely need to get away from, especially now seeing that Grady is a legit piece that the team should be trying to keep. And that's it. That's a quick list of players we think will break out over this upcoming season. If you have any more that you feel like we missed, or you don't agree with who we've picked, feel free to let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you back here next week.